Empress Cathara's talon traced the iridescent seal across the treaty hull parchment, her crest flaring briefly under the throne room's vaulted glow. The chamber's air hummed with the low thrum of councillor vents, each exhalation a veiled protest as the document locked into imperial law. "The Sindari Imperium binds itself to Terra," she declared, voice like polished obsidian, "in exchange for their wardenship of the Star Silk Nexuses. Lieutenant Mara Quinn shall serve as liaison, ceremonial consort, and integrated guard. Let none question this necessity." High Councillor Vexar leaned forward from his alcove, his multifaceted eyes glinting with calculated dissent. "Majesty, the political hemorrhage will be immediate. The Valerie enclaves already muster fleets at the fringes. This human tether invites their scorn, paints us as beggars to primitives." His mandibles clicked softly, a rhythm of old grievances. Around the crescent dais others stirred. Lordess Thalira's frills quivering in unease, Admiral Corveth's armored pauldrons shifting with restrained force. Cathara met their gazes without flinching, her throne's armrests cool beneath her grip. Stability demanded this gambit, the star silk roots, veins of economic lifeblood, frayed under pirate interdictions and Velari sabotage. Without Terran patrols, those oddly resilient vessels that endured void storms her own cruisers could not. She risked imperial famine, then fracture. "Necessary?" she echoed, her tone a blade sheathed in silk. "It averts open war. Our legions hold the core worlds, Terra's envoys secure the silk. Question the cost if you must, but the treaty stands." Dismissed. The council dispersed in a rustle of robes and clacking claws, whispers trailing like smoke. Cathara remained, watching the hollow parchment dissolve into secure ether, her mind already mapping contingencies. Duty etched every choice. Her lineage demanded unyielding poise, even as factions gnawed at the throne's foundations. The arrival horn sounded at dusk cycle, its resonant bellow echoing through the palace spires. Cathara descended the grand causeway flanked by obsidian-clad sentinels, her regalia a cascade of silk-threaded mail that whispered with each step. At the dais base stood the Terran, Lieutenant Mara Quinn, compact in form, clad in unadorned duty grays that seemed almost austere amid Sindari splendor. No entourage, no fanfare, just a single case at her feet, her posture straight yet unpretentious, brown eyes steady under cropped dark hair. "Lieutenant Quinn," Cathara intoned, extending a ritual talon in greeting without touching. "The Imperium welcomes its bound ally. You are assigned to the Palace Guard cohort, ceremonial post, with quarters in the eastern wing. Observance protocols commence at first light." Mara inclined her head precisely, neither bow nor scrape, her voice clear through the translator orb hovering between them. "Empress Cathara. Terra honors the treaty. My role is to facilitate, not adorn." She knelt then, unlatching the case to reveal a compact technical dossier, slates etched with patrol schematics, cryptographic keys for silk route beacons, and yield projections that outpaced even Thalira's most optimistic models. Initial data packet, integration parameters attached. Cathara's crest twitched involuntarily as she scanned the top slate, mandibles parting in faint surprise. The projections wove Terran sensor nets with Sindari trade vectors seamlessly anticipating pirate feints her analysts had only begun to model. "Efficient," she allowed, passing it to her scribe. "Ceremonial privileges are extended, silk robes, guard honors. Accept them, they bind the alliance visibly."
"With respect, Empress, I decline the robes."
"Field gray suffices for guard duty." Mara's expression remained neutral, but her fingers drummed once on the case, a human tick perhaps, betraying no weakness. She straightened, concealing whatever lay beneath that professional veneer. No mention of battle scars or shadowed campaigns, only this crisp utility. Cathara nodded curtly, propriety holding her curiosity in check. Distance preserved authority. "As you will. Escort her to quarters," she commanded her sentinels, turning away as the human was led off. Yet in the causeway's shadow, a flicker of reassessment stirred. This one moved with the economy of a veteran, not a diplomat. Chaos erupted at the palace gates as the proclamation chime tolled. Cathara, midway through the eastern balcony address, froze as the air split with chants. "No silk for softskins, crown betrays the crest." Anti-Terran protesters, hardline purists from the outer hives, their frills engorged in fury, had breached the outer cordon, hurling effigies of woven human effigies aflame. Sentinel phalanxes clashed, stun lances crackling, but the mob swelled, banners of fractured alliances whipping in the plasma winds. "Delay the Union broadcast," Cathara snapped to her comms aide, her voice steel amid the rising din. "Convene emergency security in the war vault, now." She swept inside, councillors converging like storm clouds. Vexar arrived first, mandibles grinding. "See, Majesty? The factions ignite. Restrict the Terran's access. Let her guard the silk ships from afar. Delira's frills paled. The protest masks deeper rot. Velari agitators, surely. Military stakes escalate. Without the treaty's face, our patrols falter. Cathara's talon slammed the vault table. Holographic maps blooming with riot overlays and route blockades. Publicly, yes, Quinn's council access is barred. She remains guard only, visible but leashed. Privately, her mind raced. The human's dossier hinted at untapped edges. Admiral Corveth sweep her quarters discreetly. Full security protocol. If contraband or subversion lurks, we excise it before the Union seals. Corveth saluted, his bulk pivoting toward the shadows. At once, Majesty. The vault emptied, but Cathara lingered, staring at the riot feeds. Protesters scattered under lance fire, yet the damage etched deeper, factions whispering of weakness, the throne's divine mantle fraying. She exhaled slowly, crest flattening. Stability first. Personal alliances could wait. Deep in the eastern wing, Sentinel Captain Lyra led the sweep team through Lieutenant Quinn's quarters. The space was Spartan, gray kit laid out with military precision, dossier slates stacked neatly, no indulgences. Thorough, Lyra muttered, her vents cycling approval despite orders. Her team combed vents, scanned under floor plates. Nothing. Until Private Soren pried a false panel in the kit locker. Majesty's shadow, Soren hissed, extracting a compact module. Not contraband, but a cipher rig. Terran make, laced with counterinsurgency algorithms that danced across his scanner like living code. Adaptive encryption pattern tracing subroutines far beyond standard liaison gear. And tucked beside it, a concealed data shard. Field logs from Fringe World Ops, detailing ambushes thwarted pirate cells unraveled by sheer human grit. Endurance through sleepless cycles. Lyra's crest flared wide, mandibles agape. This is no ceremonial bauble. She's a hunter, not a consort. The shard hummed under her talon, revealing cross-referenced Velari tactics, patterns her own intel had missed, linked to the very protesters now quelled outside. Corveth arrived moments later reviewing the finds, his armored frame tensed, multiplaceted eyes narrowing. More than contraband, competence veiled as duty. The Empress must know. The human brings blades we did not bargain for. Cathara received the report in her private sanctum, the shard projecting ghosts of battlefields into the dim air. Mara's face flickered in one log, calm amid plasma fire, directing a mixed crew through a breach. Her voice steady. Hold pattern. They've telegraphed the flank. Human endurance, there, pushing 14 cycles without collapse, while cindery auxiliaries flagged. A cautious thrill uncoiled in Cathara's core. Not weakness this Terran, but a hinge unforeseen. The treaty bound them, duty proximity forged it. This reshaped the board. She sealed the shard, mandibles curving faintly. Contain it. Drew. Watch closely, Admiral. Alliances turn on such secrets. Outside, the palace wines carried the last echoes of protest, but within, the Empress's resolve hardened. The Union dawned not as frailty but fortified steel, human edge gleaming beneath the silk. Senator Varak's crest flared crimson as he rose in the shadowed vault of the Imperial Senate, his voice slicing through the chamber's charged hush like a vibroknife. Esteemed Empress, the treaty binds us, but lineage defines legacy. I propose a formal vote. Limit recognition of the Terran consort to ceremonial duties alone. No command privileges, no strategic voice. Let her grace our halls as symbol, not sword. Cathara's throne loomed at the chamber's apex, its obsidian flanks etched with the Sindari helix of eternal vigilance. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes, senators' frills quivering, aides' tails twitching in anticipation. Outside these walls, the plaza still simmered from yesterday's unrest, but here, the real fracture lines spiderwebbed. Varak's house had long chafed at her reforms. This was no mere protocol tweak, but a wedge to pry her from the throne. Her mandibles clicked softly, a habit buried under decades of command. The floor recognizes Senator Varak. Speak your precedents. He did, weaving ancient edicts like venom silk, precedents from the fractured wars, when foreign brides diluted bloodlines and toppled dynasties. Whispers rippled, approval from the old guard, unease from her loyalists. Cathara's gaze swept the tiers, calculating alliances. Deny the vote outright and she'd fuel cries of tyranny. Allow it, and Mara's roll crumbled, the alliance a hollow jest. The human waited beyond these doors, ignorant of this blade at her throat, or so Cathara hoped. Lieutenant Mara Quinn moved with that unnerving Terran steadiness, as if crises were mere shifts in weather. The motion stands for debate, Cathara intoned, her voice a controlled thunder. She would let it simmer, buy time. But time was the plaza's enemy. Crowds gathered hourly, chanting for purity or upheaval. The treaty demanded a public affirmation today, a tactical drill to honor the Union. If unrest boiled over, as senators volleyed barbs, a calm buzzed at her armrest, Captain Lyra, from the perimeter. Plaza filling fast, protesters massing at the east gate. Request. Dispersal teams. Cathara's frill tightened. No. Force met force only bred martyrs. Divert, no troops, she murmured into the link. Proceed with the drill as planned. The Terran leads. Lyra hesitated, a rare crack in protocol. Empress, she's denied formal authority pending this vote. Execute. Cathara severed the link, her resolve a bulwark. Mara would perform, or the plaza would ignite. The vast cindery plaza thrummed under midday glare, banners of Helix and Starfield snapping in the wind. Mara Quinn stood at its heart, her Terran uniform, a sleek black exosuit etched with treaty insignias, cutting a stark line amid the armored Sindari guards. No crest, no frill, just that quiet poise. The crowd encircled her, 1,000 strong, a sea of iridescent scales and flickering crests, murmurs swelling to growls. Terran taint, crowns folly, banners dipped like spears. From the palace balcony, Cathara watched through magnified lenses, senators flanking her in tense silence. Varrock smirked beside her. But symbols do not pacify mobs. Mara raised a gauntleted hand and the drill commenced. Not the rote formation Sindari troops drilled by edict, rigid phalanxes, vibrolances, synchronized to the millisecond. No, Mara orchestrated something fluid, alive. She barked orders in flawless Sindari, her voice carrying without amplifiers. Perimeter squads, fan left. 3-meter intervals. Echo team, mirror right, hold visual on agitators. Non-lethals primed, eyes on family clusters. Guards shifted seamlessly, not in straight lines, but weaving through the throng like water parting stone. Mara strode the front, her steps measured, eyes scanning faces. Not weapons, faces. She paused by a cluster of protesters, their crests ablaze, and gestured a young Sindari forward. You, ensign. Your kit's low slung. Adjust for child height sightlines. Block sight, not path. The ensign blinked, frill stuttering, but complied. Mara multitasked without strain, directing a drone swarm overhead for aerial overwatch, signaling medics to shadowed alleys, all while reading the crowd's pulse, the subtle sway toward a hothead's bellow, the hush when she locked eyes with a mother-clutching spawn. It was choreography born of instinct, calming the plaza's fever without a single stun dart fired. Cathara's breath caught, her claws digging into the balcony's rail. Impossible. The human juggled patrol vectors, crowd psychometrics, and squad micro-adjustments as if breathing. Sindari tacticians trained years for such precision. Mara improvised it in minutes, adapting to the plaza's organic chaos. Protesters faltered, banners lowering, murmurs fading to wary mutters. By drill's end, the plaza breathed easier, dispersing in orderly streams. Varrock snorted. Coincidence. Ceremonial timing. Nothing more. Cathara nodded curtly, propriety her shield.
Indeed. Captain Lyra, observe the Terran closely.
Log all variances, no commendations yet. Eternally? Doubt flickered. Was this mere luck, or something deeper? She turned from the balcony, senators trailing. Debate resumes at Vesper. Secure the vote. But as shadows lengthened, whispers slithered through the court's veins. House Thalor, Varrock's shadowed allies, circulated flimsy printed manifests. Propose Lord Eshkar as alternate consort. Pure blood, proven general. Nullify the Terran farce. Servants bore them discreetly, to neutral houses, to her own wavering ministers. Cathara intercepted one in a corridor, her shadow falling long over the trembling aide. Speak, she commanded. The aide quailed. Frill collapsing. Empress, Thalor's proposal. They claim the drill proves her unfit for more. Cathara crumpled the phlegm, her voice ice. Relay. Any who back this fracture the Imperium. Yet the seed was sown. Tomorrow's session would erupt. Denied formal roles by the pending vote, Mara sought utility elsewhere. That evening, as palace lamps ignited in amber glows, she volunteered for perimeter patrols, unglamorous sweeps of the outer bulwarks, where spies and saboteurs probed. Sindari guards eyed her sidelong. Humans weren't built for endless vigils, or so doctrine claimed. Cathara monitored from her strategium, holoscreens flickering with feeds. Mara prowled the fog-shrouded walls, her suit's sensors humming. No complaints as hours bled. She multitasked scans, logging thermal anomalies while quizzing a novice guard on Sindari cipher wheels. Your burst protocols. Layer them with frequency hops. See here? She sketched in the air, projecting a hasty overlay. The guard's crest perked, absorbing. Then motion. A cloaked figure at the eastern rampart. Mara ghosted forward, silent as mist, her hand snapping out in a blur, disarming the intruder before he triggered the burst. The device clattered. A subversive communique, encrypted with Thalor housemarks, detailing alternate suitor plots and rally points. Got you, Mara muttered, cuffing the spy with practiced ease. She cracked the cipher en route back. Terran pattern recognition slicing through layered obfuscations that had stumped Sindari cryptographers for days. By dawn, she delivered the full decrypt to the guard post. Names, routes, bribes. Captain Lyra burst into the stratagem mid-briefing, frill erect in astonishment. Empress, the Terran intercepted this, decrypted it herself. Thalor's full maneuver laid bare. Senators gasped. Varak paled. Cathara stared at the holoproge. Undeniable. Disrupted plots. Preserved schedule. Accepted officially, and she'd concede human worth. Cracking protocol's facade. Ignore it, and risk Thalor's rise. Her mandibles parted. Decision crystallizing. Integrate Lieutenant Quinn's report into today's briefings. Full weight. Gasps echoed anew. The marriage proclamation proceeds as writ. Protocol holds. Lyra bowed, crest shimmering with unvoiced awe. As you command, Empress. Cathara dismissed them, alone with the hollow's glow. Outside, winds hushed. Within, rules wobbled, not broken, but bent by human steel beneath silk. Mara had earned this sliver, humbly, without demand. Perhaps the galaxy's ordinary hid sharper edges than Sindari steel. For now, the throne stood firmer. Alliance forged in quiet fire. But Thalor's shadow lingered, and the vote loomed. Cathara's claw tapped the console, summoning the secure channel with a flicker of Imperial override. Conflicting field reports scrolled before her. One squad claimed the outer comm relay collapsed under storm surge. Another insisted sabotage laced the grid. Thalor's faction would relish such ambiguity, twisting it into whispers of crown negligence. Private inspection, she commanded the empty chamber, her voice a silken blade. Relay Sector 7. Alert no one beyond Lieutenant Quinn. The wind howled as Cathara's cloaked shuttle pierced the tempest, rain lashing the viewport like vengeful spines. She watched from shadowed vantage, her personal guard a silent phalanx at her flanks. Below, the relay tower loomed, a skeletal spire battered by gales, diplomatic channels severed, leaving envoys adrift in the void. Mara Quinn crouched at its base, unarmored save for a sodden field jacket, tools splayed across mudslick rock. No Sindari techs flanked her. The human worked alone, as if the storm were mere inconvenience. Quinn's hands blurred, probing conduits, splicing fibers with a jury-rigged emitter from her pack. Lightning cracked, illuminating her focused grimace, water streaming down her face unchecked. Cathara's crest ridge tightened. Humans lacked the thermal pits to sense surge buildup, yet Quinn multitasked seamlessly, one hand monitoring a handheld scanner for feedback loops while the other rerouted power through improvised buffers. A Sindari crew would have retreated to protocol bays awaiting calibrated spares. This one adapted, weaving alien schematics with Terran heuristics, her lips moving in silent calculations. The relay hummed to life with a resonant thrum, channels snapping open across the grid. Diplomatic feeds bloomed in Cathara's overlay, envoys reconnected, crisis averted mid-storm. Quinn straightened, wiping grime from her brow, oblivious to the Empress's gaze. No triumphant flourish, just a quiet pack-up of tools, as if restoring Imperial lifelines were rote labor. Back in the palace core, court technicians swarmed the audit chamber, their crests flared in defensive array. Routine failure, Sovereign, lead engineer Varak intoned, mandibles clicking with rehearsed assurance. Storm overload on legacy nodes. Human intervention redundant. Risky, even. Cathara's gaze pinned him, unyielding. Redundant? She restored channels in a quarter cycle. Commission independent audit. Verify her methods. Motives. Barak's spines quivered, but he bowed, retreating with his cohort. Protocol demanded scrutiny. Alliance or not, a Terran's touch on Sindari veins warranted dissection. Yet doubt gnawed. Quinn's efficiency echoed no sabotage. The grand atrium shattered the fragile calm. An explosive bloom erupted from a vendor cart amid the morning throng, shrapnel and fire claiming 3 dards. Acrid smoke choking the air. Screams pierced the vaulted expanse as Cathara's throne dais shuddered, emergency klaxons wailing. Assassins, bold in daylight, Thalor's shadow stretched long, exploiting security gaps laid bare. Lockdowns clamped the palace like vice grips, bulkheads sealing sectors. Wounded writhed on marble floors, guards scrambling in disarray. Cathara rose, her voice booming through comms. Martial protocols. Containment priority. Crown defense absolute. Her eyes locked on Quinn, already vaulting debris, jacket torn. assessing the chaos with predatory calm. Lieutenant, Cathara projected, striding forward, her guard parting like waves. Lead containment. Isolate the source. Quinn nodded once, no hesitation, her voice steady amid the din. Understood, Empress. Triage first, stabilize casualties, then trace the signal. She dropped to the wounded nearest her, hands flashing. Pressure on arterial sprays, improvised tourniquets from vendor cloth and her own belt. A guard gasped, limb mangled. Quinn murmured reassurances in halting Sindari, reading the terror in his flickering pits, adapting her touch to his physiology. Gentle where Sindari medics gripped firm. Cathara watched, transfixed, as Quinn multitasked the maelstrom, directing guards to cordon blast radius with terse gestures, while her free hand synced a pocket decryptor to the cart's residue. Signals embedded. Low-yield remote, masked as merchant ping. Her fingers danced across the device, pattern recognition weaving through encrypted layers aliens parsed by algorithm alone. An ad hoc hack bloomed. Quinn piggybacking the palace grid to flood the trigger frequency, neutralizing the dormant chain without full disarmament protocols. The chamber fell silent save for labored breaths. Guards stared, crests limp in awe. Even Varrock, arriving late, froze mid-scan. Quinn rose, bloodied but unbowed, reporting crisply, explosive inert, 5 casualties triaged, 2 critical, transport prepped. Breach vector. Vendor clearance bypassed outer off. Cathara's mind raced, precedent cracked wide, Thaler's ploy exposed, but at what cost to order? She signaled her herald. Implement full martial sweep. Lieutenant Quinn assumes temporary command of Vanguard Corps select units only. Relay her directives without question. Murmurs rippled. Crests flared in shock. A human leading Sindari blades? Yet Quinn's poise held no arrogance, only the quiet assurance of one who endured chaos as kin. Guards snapped to her lead, forming phalanxes with newfound sync, human improvisation meshing their drilled precision. As sweeps cleared the perimeter, Cathara drew Quinn aside in a shadowed alcove, propriety veiling the fracture. Your methods? Unorthodox. Effective. Her tone held steel, probing for cracks. Quinn met her gaze evenly, wiping residue from her hands.
Field training, Empress.
Humans juggle variables, adapt on the fly. Your tech's elegant, just needed a bridge. No boast, merely fact, her humility a shield that disarmed deeper than any blade. Cathara's thermal pits warmed faintly, a Sindari rarity sparked by this alien's unyielding optimism amid peril. Competence, raw and unheralded, had steadied the throne when protocols faltered. Thalor's vote loomed, but now a human thread wove through imperial weave. She summoned her herald with a subtle crest flick. Log Lieutenant Quinn's report in the Imperial Archives, full detail, relay restoration, containment leadership. Formal record, the herald bowed low, stylus flying across crystal pad. No public fanfare, propriety held, but permanence etched in stone. Quinn's brow arched faintly, gratitude unspoken, partnership solidifying in the act. Outside, storm clouds parted, first light gilding the spires. Cathara turned from the glow, resolve firmer. The Terran had proven no mere consort, her steel bent rules without breaking them. Alliance forged deeper, shadows retreating. Yet Thalor's web tightened, next strike inevitable. For now the crown endured, bolstered by human fire. Senator Thaler rose in the shadowed vault of the Grand Synod, his frilled crest flaring like a challenge banner. By the edicts of purity, ancient statutes forbid exogamy with lesser strains. Terran's chief among them. The treaty dissolves unless revoked. His voice echoed off obsidian pillars, elder senators murmuring assent, their scales glinting under the chamber's bioluminescent orbs. Cathara's claws tightened on her throne's armrests, the weight of imperial eyes pressing like Thalor's web. She had anticipated this thrust, the old laws, dusty relics from isolationist eras now wielded to unravel her alliance. Mara Quinn stood at her flank, the Terran lieutenant rigid in ceremonial silks, her pale face impassive amid the Sindari sea. No consort's fragility there. Last night's shadows had forged something sharper. Petition noted, Cathara intoned, her voice a blade sheathed in silk. The hearing proceeds. Present evidence. Thalor bowed with exaggerated deference, gesturing to a liveried attendant who approached the dais bearing the ritual decanter, crystal etched with binding oaths, its contents shared to seal debates. Tradition demanded the Empress drink first, symbolizing trust in the assembly. As the attendant poured the amber elixir, a faint shimmer distorted the air, a subtle aerosol bloom, undetectable to untrained senses. Cathara lifted the cup, its rim cool against her scales. Thalor's gaze locked on hers, triumphant. Then Mara's hand shot out, swift as a striking viper, intercepting the vessel mid-arc. Wait, Don't drink, the human said, low and urgent, her free hand already palming a slender injector from her cuff. Gasps rippled through the synod. Insolence, Thalor snarled. The Terran defiles right, but Mara moved without pause, her eyes flicking over the decanter's surface, nostrils flaring as if scenting the peril. She pressed the injector to Cathara's forearm, a sharp prick, then warmth flooding her veins. Chelator protocols, Cathara realized dimly. Human field medicine surging to bind toxins before they could bind her blood. Mara's fingers danced next, uncorking a vial from her belt, forcing 2 drops into the Empress's mouth. Bitter, acrid, neutralizing agents, administered with the precision of one who had cheated death in forgotten wars. Cathara's vision cleared as the haze of onset poisoning ebbed. The Terran's competence burned brighter than the orbs above. Multitasking diagnostics, antidote deployment, all while scanning the chamber for threats. No hesitation, no plea for permission, just action. Humble in its efficiency. Secure the attendant, Cathara commanded. Surging to her feet. The synod froze as her guard swarmed, pinning the saboteur, a mid-rank clerk, scales paling to ash. Detain all handlers of the decanter.
Proceedings halt.
But Majesty? Elder Voss protested, his voice quavering. Custom decrees continuation until verdict. Custom bends to survival, Cathara snapped, propriety fracturing under the crown's unyielding core. Her heart thrummed with dual pulses, fury at the breach and a dawning reliance on the human at her side. Mara knelt now, sampling the decanter's residue with a discreet scanner, her face lit by its glow, pattern recognition weaving data threads no Sindari scanner could match so swiftly. Thalor seized the chaos, his crest fully erect. See? The alien's touch corrupts. Let the crown wed Hausverak. General Drask's bloodline fortifies the legions, not dilutes them with soft-skinned primitives. Murmurs swelled, rival nobles nodding. Drask's faction, ever hungry for the throne's leverage. Cathara felt the political lattice shift, petitions morphing into bids for power. Yet she stood taller, Mara's quiet vigilance a shield at her elbow. Proof against the petitioners first, Cathara declared, her tone brooking no fracture. Accusations without fangs or whispers. Lieutenant Quinn, your assessment. Toxin trace neurophage variant, sourced off-world, not Sindari lab work, no boast. Just facts, layered with implication. Thalor sneered. Terran lies to shield her kind. Cathara silenced him with a glare, then nodded to Mara. Trace it. The human inclined her head, unobtrusive as she synced her wrist comb to the chamber's secure nexus. A covert hack, fingers blurring over holographic keys. Cathara watched, transfixed. Where Sindari cryptographers labored in teams with rote algorithms, Mara multitasked, decrypting signal ghosts, cross-referencing imperial logs, even pulling ambient audio from the clerk's comm badge. Adaptability incarnate, learning their layered protocols mid-stride, her brow furrowed in concentration, not strain. Minutes stretched, the synod hushed. Mara's eyes narrowed, connecting dots across domains, a faint pulse signature matching border relay station. Network pinned, she murmured. Saboteur's handler routed through Principality of Elendor, Duke Ralph's sigil on the ghost packet. They've been probing our flanks for cycles. Cathara's breath caught. Elendor, Thalor's shadowy patrons, proof irrefutable, exposing not just poison, but treasonous ties. The human's fieldcraft dismantled webs in breaths what took her analysts spans. No arrogance in Mara's stance, just quiet delivery, as if unraveling empires were Tuesday maintenance. Elder Voss recoiled, scales flushing crimson. Impossible. Elendor denies all. Denial crumbles under data, Cathara said, her voice steel. Thalor's crest wilted, eyes darting, dismissive neutrality toward the Terran shattering into wary awe. Whispers spread. The human saw patterns they grazed by committee, her resilience turning assassination to advantage. Detain Thalor for questioning, Cathara ordered. Guards closed in, the senator yielded without fight, his bid crumbling. The chamber exhaled, respect threading through the fear aliens, like Voss now eyeing Mara with progressive wonder, murmuring of ghost sense in human lore they would later scour archives to verify. Yet the hearing's shadow lingered, anti-exogamy edicts still venomous. Cathara turned to Mara, the personal connection deepening amid the intrigue. This Terran was no fragile link. Her capabilities, endurance through crisis, emotional read of the room's subtexts, bridged what laws sought to sever. Lieutenant Quinn, Cathara announced, projecting to the synod, you are appointed personal security liaison to the crown. Your vigilance guards the throne henceforth. Mara blinked, surprise flickering before humility settled. Honor to serve, Majesty. We'll need joint protocols, your guard strengths with my overlays. Nods rippled symbolic elevation, command firmly hers yet weaving the human into the lattice. Boss approached post-adjournment, frills low. Your liaison perceives signals we miss.
How? Practice, Mara replied simply. No lecture. Humans juggle variables.
Your precision in formation holds the line. We adapt the gaps. Cathara observed the exchange, warmth piercing her reserve. Mutual growth, Sindari discipline meeting human fire. Thalor's web frayed, but Elendor's shadow loomed larger. For now, the alliance endured, fortified by a Terran's unassuming steel. As the synod dispersed, Cathara drew Mara aside in the antechamber, formal cracks yielding to quiet bond. You saved more than my life today, our pact's heart. Just doing the job, but together, unbreakable. Outside, the parted clouds held, light steady on the spires. Shadows retreated further, human capability etching permanence into imperial stone. Yet whispers of deeper plots stirred. Elendor's retaliation brewing. The crown stood stronger, a Terran at its unyielding side. Cathara's claw tapped the obsidian table once, silencing the chamber's murmur. Name them, she commanded, her voice a blade unsheathed amid the holographic flicker of intercepted signals. High Oracle Vesper inclined his frilled crest, spines quivering with unease. The Veil Shadow Pact, Majesty, a shadow alliance of exiled houses and frontier warlords, binding Elendor's remnants with off-world smugglers. They aim to destabilize the core by weaponizing rumors. Your alliance with the Terran, twisted into proof of divine disfavor. The council shifted, iridescent scales catching the dim light of the sealed vault. Cathara felt the weight of their stares, not defiance yet, but the fracture lines of doubt. Stability demanded action. Tradition be damned. Redeploy the 3rd and 7th garrisons from the fringes. Seal the outer docks. And summon Lieutenant Quinn. Murmurs rippled anew, but none dared protest as the doors hissed open. Mara Quinn strode in, her human frame unyielding in the crisp lines of her envoy's uniform. A data slate clutched in one steady hand. No salute, no flourish, just readiness. Cathara had seen it before, this quiet competence, but today it anchored her resolve. Report, Cathara said, gesturing her forward against the sidelong glances. Mara placed the slate at the table's heart, its projection blooming into cascading code streams. Intercepted bursts from a shadow relay in the Veil Nebula. Your intelligence flagged the encryption. Old Sindari military cipher, layered with Krell harmonics. I broke it in under 6 hours. Her fingers danced across the air, isolating threads. They're planning blackmail, fabricated gene scans claiming your lineage deviates from the divine mandate, tied to treaty irregularities. Specific targets, Archon Lyra and heir Thalor hit, with tailored scandals within the cycle. Vesper's crest flared wide, a gasp echoing through the chamber. Impossible. That cipher predates the reconciliation wars. No non-Sindari has unraveled it without ritual keys. Mara's gaze met Cathara's, unflinching, a faint human smile tugging her lips. Confidence without boast. Humans pattern match across domains. It's not magic, it's connecting echoes others miss. Cathara nodded once, the gesture imperial yet laced with something warmer. A crack in the ceremonial frost. Council, mark these vectors. Lieutenant Quinn's decrypts are our shield. Prepare purges. The session fractured into urgent subchannels, but peace shattered before contingencies could firm. Alarms wailed, the vault trembling as thunderous booms rolled from the west wing. Hollow feeds erupted. A plasma charge had sheared through load-bearing arches, corridors buckling in cascades of stone and fire. Evacuate. Cathara rose, her guard surging forward, but Mara was already moving. Faster, decisive. West wing compromised, structural cascade imminent. Mara barked into her comm, voice cutting through panic like a laser. All personnel to east lifts. Secure the archive vaults first. They're the blackmail core. She pivoted to Cathara's detail, eyes scanning schematics only she seemed to hold in her mind. Majesty, your path. Service Corridor 7B, now. I'll cover the flank. Propriety splintered. Cathara's talon gripped Mara's arm, a breach yet instinctive. You presume much, Lieutenant.
Results over rank, Empress. Mara didn't pull away, already directing a squad of stunned Sindari guards.
You barricade the breach. You two, pattern the debris for secondaries.
Move. The human darted into the smoke-choked hall, her form a blur amid falling girders. Cathara followed at a commander's pace, her mind cataloging the impossible. Mara juggling the impossible, blast predictions and guard deployments without pause, her shouts pulling order from chaos. Sindari warriors, bred for singular focus, faltered at the multitasking. One guard froze at a junction, spines rigid. Left flank clear, ambushers inbound from the gallery, Mara called, having traced heat blooms on her wrist scan. She hefted a fallen beam, wedging it into a choke point with improvised leverage, then signaled 2 guards. Flush them. I'll draw fire. Cathara watched from cover as Mara exposed herself, firing precise bursts that pinned 3 cloaked figures. Veil shadow operatives, their disruptors whining. One lunged, Mara sidestepped, tripped him into his ally's shot, then cuffed the survivor with a neural binder yanked from her belt. Captured alive, spilling codes under duress. By the time the dust settled, corridors secured, Mara stood amid the detained, bloodied but unbowed, coordinating med teams while logging evidence. Her endurance, no tremor, no demand for rest, drew stares from the guards. One murmured to another, "She fights as if the stars fuel her." Cathara approached, her presence parting the throng. "You turn defense to victory, Terran. The archives stand." Mara wiped soot from her face, meeting the Empress's gaze with that same steady humility. Team effort. Your guards held the line, word spread like plasma fire. By dawn the great hall brimmed with heirs and nobles, their crests arched in fury. Air Thalor stepped forward, flanked by Archon Lyra's kin, voices a chorus of outrage. "The attack reeks of treaty taint," the Lord thundered, his scales flushed violet. "This human consort draws assassins to our heart. Annul the pact, preserve the succession. Civil unrest brews in the provinces. The mandate demands purity." Cheers erupted, a tide-threatening fracture. Cathara mounted the dais, her form towering, silence falling like a gauntlet. Mara's decrypts and captures burned in her mind, proof against their venom. "Nobles of the Imperium," she intoned, voice resonant with ancient authority. "The Veil Shadow sought our division. They wielded lies of lineage and treaty to unmake us." She extended a talon toward Mara, who stood at the hall's edge, posture impeccable despite the night's toll. Lieutenant Quinn unraveled their codes, foresaw their blades, and captured their vanguard. Her actions defended the crown, sanctioned, vital. The treaty endures, not as chain, but as strength. Gasps rippled, Thalor's crest sagged. But the whispers, silenced by deeds. Cathara's gaze swept the hall, unyielding. "Any who demand annulment challenge my sanction of this alliance. The Terran stands as guardian, her competence etched in our survival." Mara shifted subtly, surprise flickering in her eyes, unaware still of the awe she kindled. Vesper leaned toward a whispering aide, his frills twitching. "Research the humans further. This resilience defies archives." Outside the hall, as delegations dispersed under watchful garrisons, Cathara drew Mara aside into a shadowed alcove. Formal masks slipped, exhaustion touched even the Empress. "You risk much for us, Lieutenant. Why?" Mara shrugged, a human gesture of simplicity. "Do you take, and partnership? Your Imperium's worth fighting for." Cathara's spine softened, a rare vulnerability. "Then fight beside me still. Rumors die, but shadows linger." Light from the spires held firm, but in the encrypted whispers Elendor's networks stirred anew, probing for weakness. The crown, Terran forged, stronger, braced for the gathering storm. Alarm shattered the throne chamber's hush, crimson pulses racing across crystal walls as the first invasion feeds bloomed on the central hololith. Empress Cathara's crest flared involuntarily, scales tightening along her neck in the ancient reflex of battle rage, while couriers burst through the vaulted doors, their voices a tangle of urgency. "Highness, the Varak Principality strikes at 3 vectors. Orbital pickets shattered, ground lances piercing the eastern shields, and saboteurs in the Undercity timed to our fractures." Cathara rose from the throne, her armored robes whispering like drawn blades, gaze locking on the flickering maps where Varak dreadnoughts clawed through the void. Elendor's whispers had been the prelude. This was the storm's full fury, the succession vipers now feasting on Imperial blood amid the court's turmoil. Stability demanded she crush it, or the Imperium crumbled. "Seal the chambers," she commanded, voice steel over silk. "Council, report readiness." Mara Quinn stood at the hololith's edge, her Terran frame unbowed amid the towering Sindari aides, fingers already dancing across auxiliary pads, jury-rigging militia feeds, into the palace net. No tremor in her stance, no widened eyes at the carnage, only that steady human focus, partitioning the chaos into vectors as if plotting a training drill. Varrock's playing divide and conquer, Empress. Their poor thrust hits the palace districts, but flanks are thin. Citizen militias in the outer rings can pinch them if we sink them to your defenses. Joint op. Palace holds the anvil, militias the hammer. I lead the sink from here. Your legions execute. Cathara's inner council recoiled, frills quivering in disdain. Lord Vesperus, Elendor's shadow puppet, hissed first.
The Terran directing Sindari arms?
This alien upstart. Exile her now before she dooms us. Murmurs rippled, crests dimming in shared doubt, but Cathara's gaze silenced them, her tail lashing once. She had seen Mara's calibrations turn whispers to steel. To cast her out now was to invite the void. No, Cathara declared, stepping to the chamber's broadcast dais, her voice amplifying across the Imperium's waves. I assume wartime command. Lieutenant Quinn remains at my side, essential to our defense. All forces enact her protocol. For the Imperium, the veto landed like a gauntlet, council spines stiffening in shock, but orders flowed. Mara nodded once, already partitioning channels, militia captains on one feed, palace batteries on a third, multitasking as naturally as breathing, her voice calm amid the storm. Sector East, reroute power from non-essentials, form kill zones at Grid 47. Militias, hold fire until palace beacons sink. Cathara watched, a flicker of unease cracking her regal poise. Humans endured without the crest's fire rush, adapted without ritual chants. Extraordinary, yet Mara claimed it mere training. As Varrock lances hammered the shields, violet plasma blooming like wounds, Mara juggled overrides, spotting patterns in the enemy's probe feints that Sindari analysts missed by rote. They're feinting low to draw our guns. Hit the high vectors now. A militia squad, Terran prompted, flanked a Varrock piercer. It crumpled in a fireball, cheers crackling over comms. Key sectors stabilized, the line holding where it should have buckled. Sustained assault ground on through the cycle. Varrock dreadnoughts contesting the orbitals while ground forces clawed at supply nodes. Cathara's claws gripped the command rail, her mind a forge of tactics honed by divine military blood. But fatigue gnawed at her aide's edges. Frills wilting, decisions slowing. Mara persisted. Eye sharp, voice unwavering, coordinating counterstrike vectors with Cathara's input. Empress, your legions can punch the orbital arrays if militias screen the nodes. I'll crypto-spike their command net, disrupt their sync, while you retake. Unified, they moved as one will. Cathara broadcast the thrust. Legions, advance under Quinn's veil. Mara wove the cipher, her fingers blurring across pads, improvising a ghost protocol from scavenged Varrock signals. Creativity born of crisis, linking human pattern sense to Sindari firepower. Orbital arrays flared back to Imperial gold as dreadnoughts faltered, blinded, supply nodes secured in a cascade of precision strikes. Varrock's invasion shattered, their remnants fleeing into the black. Victory's glow bathed the throne chamber, aides' crests blazing in triumph, but expedience slithered forth. Vesperus pressed close, voice oily. Highness, with the threat broken, dissolve the Terran tie. Safer politics, pure bloodlines. Emergency statutes allow it. Offers cascaded, puppet regents, diluted alliances, anything to sideline the human. Cathara's tail coiled, propriety fracturing into resolve. She had ruled alone, born to the throne's weight. But Mara's quiet competence, enduring the siege without boast, bonding squads across divides with simple clarities, had reshaped the crown's edge. True power was not isolation. No, she intoned, invoking the ancient codes. Emergency statutes legitimize Lieutenant Mara Quinn as consort and co-commander. Her value is proven. The decree submits to assembly now. The chamber hushed, then erupted as feeds linked to the grand halls. Mara met Cathara's gaze, a faint human smile cracking her fatigue. Respect, not triumph. Assembly debates raged brief. Varrock's rout tipping scales. Ratification thundered through the spires. Accepted! The High Herald boomed. Mara Quinn, consort and commander of the Imperium. Court crests bowed, Vesperus's dimming to defeat. Palace governance realigning. Shared thrones, joint councils, authority woven dual. Cathara felt the shift in her core, strength not diminished, but amplified, the Empress who had forged an equal from duty's forge. Mara, humble as ever, merely adjusted her stance. We held together, Empress. That's what matters. In the quiet aftermath, as lights from the spires burned eternal, Cathara understood. She was born to rule, and learned that true power lay in finding an equal.